My sister-in-law stole little things from our house every time she visited, and she called me crazy for losing things, so I made her lose her dignity. My husband Dennis and I don't have much. Small house, one income most months, and we count every peso before we spend it. His sister Rowena and her husband Arnel came for family dinner about every 3 months, and every single time they left, something in our house was gone. The first time it was a set of teaspoons my mother Janelle gave me from her own wedding set. I thought I misplaced them. The next visit, my phone charger disappeared from the wall. Then a bottle of perfume I kept for special days. Then Dennis's little multi-tool from the drawer by the stove. Small things. Things you doubt yourself about. I told Dennis. He said, "You probably just lost them. Why would my sister take a charger? They're not poor." I said they take something every time they come. He said, "Stop counting spoons, it's embarrassing." So I started paying attention. The next dinner I watched Rowena the whole night. She went to the bathroom 4 times, and each time she passed through our bedroom. After they left, my earrings were gone from the dish by the sink. I called Rowena and asked, nicely, if she had seen them. She said, "Are you accusing me? In front of my husband? I would never touch your things. Maybe you should keep your house cleaner so you stop losing stuff." Arnel got on the phone and said, "We drove an hour to eat your food, and this is how you treat us. Unbelievable." Then he hung up. I told Dennis. He said, "See, now they're insulted. You made it worse." His mother Ada called me that night and said, "Rowena told me you called her a thief. That's a terrible thing to say about family. Apologize to her." I did not apologize. Nothing happened to them anyway. They kept coming, and things kept leaving. Over the next year, it got bigger. A small speaker. Dennis's watch. Not expensive, but his father gave it to him before he died. The good knife. Every time, the same script. They denied it. They got offended. Somehow I was the bad one for noticing. Ada always took her daughter's side. She said, "Rowena has a good heart. You're just stressed about money and looking for someone to blame." That was the part nobody would look at straight. Rowena and Arnel lived in a house Ada owned and paid nothing for it, and Ada sent them money every month on top of that, and Arnel barely worked because he did not have to. They had more than we did without earning any of it, and I was the one being told I was poor and bitter and imagining things. Rowena started saying it to my face at dinners. She would say, "Still losing things? Maybe you should get your memory checked," and then laugh and ask for more rice. One night she leaned back in her chair and said, "You have so little. No wonder you keep track of every little thing. It must be exhausting to be you." Everyone at the table just kept eating. I stopped keeping anything nice within reach when they visited. I hid what I could. They still found things. Arnel came out of our bedroom once saying he was looking for the bathroom, holding his phone, and after that my ring was gone. There was nothing I could do that anyone would believe. Then Ada's 60th birthday came around. Ada trusted me more than she trusted her own daughter with careful things, because I was the one who remembered her doctor visits and kept her receipts straight and never lost a paper she gave me. So she gave me her gold bracelet, the one Dennis's late father gave her 30 years ago, with their wedding date engraved on the inside. She said, "Take it to the jeweler and have it cleaned and the clasp fixed before my party. Keep it safe with you. I trust you." I put it in a small box in my closet. 2 weeks before the party, Rowena and Arnel came for dinner. I forgot to move the box. After they left, the bracelet was gone. I tore the closet apart. It was Ada's most precious thing, and it was gone. And if I told her it had been stolen from my house, she would blame me, because everything was always my fault. So I stalled her. When she asked, I said the jeweler was backed up and needed more time. She said, "Okay, but I want to wear it to my party." I felt sick for 2 weeks straight. Then the party came. The whole family was there. Cousins, aunts, neighbors, everyone. And Rowena walked in wearing a gold bracelet on her wrist, holding her arm up, showing it off, saying loudly, "Arnel finally spoiled me. Isn't it beautiful? Real gold." Arnel stood next to her nodding. Ada looked at the bracelet on her daughter's wrist. She walked over, took Rowena's arm, and turned the bracelet until she could read the inside of it. Her own wedding date was engraved there. She said, "Where did you get this?" Rowena said, "Arnel bought it. I told you." Ida said, "Arnel bought me my own bracelet with my wedding date from your father inside it." Rowena's face fell. She said, "I found it. I mean, I thought it was old and nobody wanted it." Ada said, "You went into her house and you took my bracelet." And then every small thing that had gone missing for 2 years lined up in front of Ada at once, in 1 second, in one row. She looked at me and said, "You told me the jeweler had it." I told her the truth. It was stolen from my closet the last time Rowena came to my house, and I had been too afraid to tell her because I knew who would get blamed. Rowena tried to twist it. She said, "This is why nobody likes coming to your house. You turn everything into drama." Ada told her to be quiet. Then Ada said the thing that changed everything. She said the money stopped that night, and the house was no longer theirs to sit in for free. She said, "I gave you everything, and you stole from me, and you let this girl take the blame for it." Rowena cried and said it was one bracelet. It was not a big deal. Family forgives. Then she grabbed Aida's arm and pulled her toward the back of the house, away from the cousins and the aunts and everyone standing around pretending not to watch. I followed and stopped in the doorway, half hidden by the wall, close enough to hear every word. Rowena had Ada backed against the counter, and she was sobbing so hard her shoulders were shaking. She said, "I made one mistake, and you're taking my house? You're choosing her over your own daughter?" Her voice cracked on the word daughter, like she had practiced it, and I could see it working. Ada's face was softening, the way it always did when Rowena turned on the tears. I had watched this happen 100 times. Rowena does something wrong, then cries about it until everyone forgets what she did, and only remembers how sad she looked. Ada reached out like she was going to touch her shoulder, and I thought, here we go, 2 years of stealing erased by 20 minutes of crying. Then Rowena stopped crying, just like that, like a switch flipped. Her face went from broken to hard in 2 seconds, and she yanked the bracelet off her wrist and held it out. She said, "Fine, you want it back? Take it. But everything else she claims I took, that's lies. All of it. She's been turning you against me since the wedding. Ask Dennis. He knows she makes things up. He's told me himself that she imagines things going missing and blames everyone around her." Ada looked past her and saw me standing in the doorway. She looked right at me, and I saw that flicker of doubt, the same doubt I had been fighting for 2 years. And she said, "Is that true? Did you exaggerate?" And the floor tilted under me. I had the proof. I had the bracelet on her own wrist 10 minutes ago, and one crying session was almost enough to undo all of it, but I was tired. I had spent 2 years ears swallowing every word I wanted to say, and I understoed that if I did not speak now, I would be swallowing them for the rest of my life. So I stepped into that room and I listed it, not yelling, not crying, just listing. I said, the teaspoons my mother gave me from her wedding set, gone after your first dinner at my house, my phone charger, my perfume, Dennis's multi-tool, my earrings from the dish by the sink, the speaker off the shelf in the living room, your son's watch, the one his father gave him before he died, the good knife, my ring, which went missing the same night Arnell came out of our bedroom saying he was looking for the bathroom. Every single visit, something left with them. I told Dennis, I told you, I told Rowena to her face, and every single time, I was the one called crazy. I was the one told to apologize. I have nothing to gain from lying. I never did. Ada stood there a long time. Then she looked down at the bracelet sitting in Rowena's open hand, and she picked it up slowly, like it was something fragile, and turned it over and read the engraving again. I watched her thumb move across the date she married Dennis's father, the man who had been dead for years, the man who gave her that bracelet when they had nothing and it meant everything. Her voice was low and steady when she finally spoke. She said, you wore my dead husband's gift on your wrist and told this whole family your husband bought it for you. You stood in my house at my party and showed off my bracelet like it was yours. Don't you dare call anyone else a liar tonight. Rowena's mouth opened and nothing came out. Ada closed her fist around the bracelet and walked out without looking back. I stayed. Rowena stood alone by the counter with her arms at her sides, and the look on her face was not shame. She stepped closer and whispered, so quiet nobody else in the world could have heard it. This isn't over. I didn't answer. I turned around and walked out because for the first time in 2 years, I was not the one who had to explain myself, but I knew her. She never took a loss and walked away. She went underground and made phone calls and rewrote the story until she was the victim. That whisper was not a threat she would forget by morning. It was a schedule. The text started within days. Cousins I had met 3 times in my life. Aunts I had never spoken to alone. One wrote, Rowena says you accused her of stealing in front of Ada to get attention. That's really low. Another one wrote, Dennis must be so embarrassed. That one stung worse because it wasn't even about the stealing anymore. It was about how my telling the truth had inconvenienced my husband. 4 messages in a week. All from people who barely knew me. All repeating the same story from the same source. Rowena had turned herself into the poor daughter thrown out over a misunderstanding, and turned me into the scheming wife who poisoned a mother against her own child. Dennis came home from work with his jaw tight and said, my cousin called me at work today. He asked if my wife is starting problems with my family. Do you know how that feels? I was washing a plate at the sink and I set it down carefully because I did not want to throw it. I said, do you know how it feels to be robbed every 3 months and called crazy for noticing? He didn't answer. He walked into the bedroom and shut the door quietly, which was worse than a slam, because a slam means someone is still fighting. That night I sat on the edge of the bed and called my mother. Janelle picked up on the second ring, the way she always does, because she is the kind of woman who keeps her phone close and her volume up in case anyone needs her. I told her all of it. The bracelet, the engraving, the party, the texts from cousins who had never once called me for any other reason. And when I got to the teaspoons, her voice changed. It went quiet first, then it started to shake. She said, your father and I bought those when we had nothing. I kept them for years because they meant something. I gave them to you because you meant more. And she took them. And every single person in that family let her. My mother does not cry. She is the one who holds everything together and never complains. Hearing her voice break made me understand something I should have seen 2 years earlier. I had been so busy keeping the peace, so busy being the good wife who does not make waves, that I forgot my own mother would have gone to war for me if I had asked her once. She said, you should have told me sooner. I would have walked into that woman's house and turned out every drawer she owns. I almost laughed because I could picture it exactly. My mother marching through Rowena's house like a storm in house slippers. Then she got serious and her voice went steady in the way it does when she is finished being sad. She said, don't let Dennis talk you into apologizing. Not this time. If he can't see that you spent 2 years being called a liar in your own home, then he needs to decide what kind of husband he wants to be, because right now he isn't being one. I hung up and sat in the dark and felt something I had not felt in a very long time. Not comfort exactly. Backing. Then Rowena texted me directly. It said, you think you won? Ada will come around. She always does. And when she does, I'll make sure she sees exactly what kind of person you really are. I read it 3 times. The first time my heart pounded. The second time I was angry. The third time I was calm, because people who are winning do not send messages like that. She wanted me to answer with something ugly she could screenshot and forward. I deleted what I had started typing. I took a screenshot of hers instead, saved it twice, and went back to folding laundry. A few days later, I drove to Ada's house. She looked tired in a way that sits under the eyes and pulls the whole face down. We sat in her living room and she said, Rowena calls me every day, morning and night, crying. She says you planted the bracelet on her to frame her. I said, how would I plant your bracelet on her wrist at your own party? She walked in wearing it. She showed it to everyone. She said Arnell bought it. Ada looked at her hands and said, I know it doesn't make sense, but she's my daughter and I can't sleep. And I understood the play. Rowena was not trying to make Ada believe her. She was trying to wear her down, because being right and being at peace are not the same thing, and she was making sure Ada could not have both. So I said, come to my house. Don't take my word. Come see the empty dish by the sink. Come see the drawer with the gap in it. Come see the shelf where the speaker used to sit. Aida came the next morning, just after 9. I walked her room by room and mostly pointed. She touched the empty jewelry dish with one finger. She opened the drawer and stared at the gap where the knife should have been, like it was proof of something she had spent 2 years refusing to see. Then she sat down hard at our table, pressed her hands flat against the wood, and said, Rowena called me this morning, before I came here. She said if I don't stop punishing her, she'll cut me off completely. She'll move somewhere far, change her number, and I'll never see her again. My whole body went tight, because I understood the new weapon. She was not arguing about the bracelet anymore. She was holding herself hostage. Ada had already buried her husband. Her children were all she had left, and Rowena had aimed the one threat that could break her clean in half. I said, so she steals from your house. She lies to your face. She wears your dead husband's gift on her wrist and says her husband bought it. And now she's threatening to disappear unless you let her keep all of it. Ida nodded slowly. She didn't defend her. She said, I know what she is. Maybe I always knew. But I carried her. I can't be the mother whose daughter vanished because I chose to punish her. And then she broke, right there at our table. The quiet kind of crying that doesn't make any noise. That was when Dennis walked in. He saw his mother sobbing at our table, and he looked at me. Not at her. At me. And I saw the same look I had been getting for 2 years before he even opened his mouth. He said, what did you say to her? But Ada raised her palm without turning around and said, she didn't say anything. Your sister did. Dennis froze in the doorway with his keys still in his hand. Ada wiped her face and told him everything. The morning call, the threat, all of it. And I watched his face change while she talked. The anger he came in with didn't go away. It turned into shame. He pulled out the chair across from his mother and sat down and said nothing for a long time. The clock on the wall was the loudest thing in the house. Then he said, Mom. She took my watch. Ada blinked. He kept going. He said, Dad gave me that watch before he passed. It wasn't worth anything to anyone else, but he wore it every day. And I kept it on my dresser because I liked seeing it when I woke up. It went missing after one of their dinners. I told myself it rolled under the bed. I told myself I put it in a drawer and forgot. I made up a dozen stories in my head because I didn't want to believe it, but I didn't lose it. She took it off my dresser and I knew it, and I said nothing, because saying something meant admitting what she is. I stared at my husband. He knew. He always knew. It had happened to him too. The exact same sick twist in the gut, and he chose silence. And while he was choosing silence, I was being called crazy in my own home. Ada reached across and put her hand over his and didn't say anything at all. That Saturday, while Dennis was at work, someone knocked. Rowena was on my porch with her hands folded in front of her like she was about to walk into church. Arnell sat in the car, staring straight ahead. She said, can we talk? Just us. No audience. Woman to woman. I stepped aside and let her in. I did not sit. I stood by the counter with my arms crossed while she pulled out a chair at my table and folded her hands and said, I came to apologize. I know I took things. I know it was wrong. But you have to understand. Arnell doesn't provide. He hasn't in a long time. I was too ashamed to ask for help. Taking small things was easier than admitting we were falling apart. Her voice was soft. Her eyes were wet. And for 1 second, I almost believed her. Then she said, so can you talk to Ada? Tell her I apologized. Tell her to give us more time with the house. You're the one she listens to now. And there it was. The coin dropping into the slot. She hadn't come to say sorry. She had come because Ada listens to me now, and she needed to borrow that. I said, you didn't come here to apologize. You came here because Ada listens to me and you need me to save you. The mask came off her face in one motion. She said, fine. You want me to beg? I'll beg. But if we end up on the street, that's on you. You could stop this, and you're choosing not to. I said, you could have stopped this 2 years ago by not stealing from my house. You chose not to. She stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. Her voice went cold and flat. She said, you know what? I'll tell everyone you refused to help. I'll tell Ada I came here to make peace and you turned me away. I'll tell her I got on my knees and begged and you just watched. Let's see who she believes. I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I reached over to the counter where my phone had been lying face down since before I opened the front door, and I picked it up and turned the screen toward her. The voice recorder was open. The red bar was moving. It had been running since the moment she sat down. Every word. The part where she admitted she took things. The part where she asked me to fix it with Ada. The threat. All of it in her own voice. Time-stamped. I said, go ahead. Tell Ada whatever you want. I'll send her this. Rowena stared at the phone. Her mouth opened and nothing came out. I watched 3 things move across her face in about 2 seconds. Shock, then rage, then something I had never once seen on her. Fear. She grabbed her bag off the floor and walked to the door. She stopped with her hand on the knob and turned around and said, you think you're better than me? Her voice was small, like the last air leaving a balloon. I said, no, I just got tired of being worse off because of you. She pulled the door shut behind her without slamming it. I watched from the window until the car turned the corner. Then I sat down at the table, stopped the recording, saved it, and sent the file to Ada with one line. I wrote, she came to my house today. Listen to this before she calls you. Then I put the phone down and waited. The light through the window went orange and then gray. When Ada finally called, her voice was steady, steadier than I had heard it in weeks. She said, I heard it, all of it. Then she said, the house and the money are finished. I'm not discussing it again. Not with her, not with Arnell, not with anyone. And then she said the thing I had been waiting 2 years to hear. She said, I'm sorry I didn't believe you. You told me the truth over and over, and I chose her because she was my daughter, and it was easier than facing what she really was. My throat closed and I said thank you, and I meant it more than I have ever meant those 2 words. When Dennis came home, he turned on the light and found me sitting in the dark at the table. I told him everything. He listened all the way through without interrupting once, and when I finished, he said, I'm sorry. I should have believed you from the start. I looked at my husband and said, yes, you should have. I did not say it was okay. I did not say I forgive you. He had let me stand alone in a room full of people who thought I was a liar, and he had the truth in his pocket the whole time. And one sorry does not carry 2 years. 3 weeks later, a paper bag was sitting on our porch step. No note, no name, nothing written on it. Inside were the teaspoons, the charger, the perfume, the multi-tool, my earrings, my ring, and Dennis's father's watch. I laid all of it out on the table and counted every piece twice. The knife and the speaker were not in the bag. I put the teaspoons in the drawer, closed it, and left the empty bag on the counter for 3 days before anyone threw it out.